Melissa.
Good morning.
I'll be there 1 second. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good. Get you all dolled up.
Not really.
Mhm.
Decided to wear work clothes today instead of casual clothes. Hi.
Hey. I'm just eating an apple and I haven't finished it, so
Earlier.
rotten by the time I'm done here, but oh well.
Try to have one red apple a day.
Yeah.
See.
I'll finish eating it while we're waiting. I'm still here if you want to talk to me.
How was your week?
Mine? All right.
Yeah.
You know, have a closing today.
Awesome.
Well, so I was at a wake last night, unfortunately, and
Sorry.
yeah, and the buyer's agents text me, the windows in the in-law don't open, you know, the boiler's leaking, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, for the love. So I went over there last night. I opened all the windows. They were totally fine. Like I did videos and everything and sent them. And it wasn't the furnace that was leaking. It was the pipe, the runoff pipe. So we're doing a $1,500 holdback.
So is the seller going to have to address?
We have someone going there at noon. Somebody was already there fixing it in the first place, but I guess didn't do that.
Finish.
Yeah.
Didn't finish the job.
Mm-hmm. She's going at noon, so I'm waiting for him to call me.
I've got two closings next week. One's my listing, one's not my listing.
Nice.
We're waiting for the certificate of compliance on the new septic install. Hopefully today. I mean, I know the system passes, but it's just a matter of, getting it approved.
Right, right.
Hi, Julia. Good morning. I see Kelly's logged on, and we've got Kathy Arnold.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Cal.
How do I upload to the chat? Would be my question.
Hello.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Oh, here comes Margaret.
How
do I
so if
load
you go to chat, and then when you open chat on the right-hand side, it says file with like a little piece of paper.
Okay, I see.
And then you can go down to your computer.
Awesome.
Hello, ladies.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay.
Top of the morning to you, darlings. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
Margaret.
Just ducky.
Good.
It's Friday.
Yay!
Yay.
I know.
Great to see you all.
Where is everybody?
This powerhouse of women.
Right?
Yeah, baby.
Right. She controlled the universe.
How to be a co-broke. Oh, download. Okay. I get
Yeah.
my act together.
Yes, I have in the chat how to be a great COBRO class download, which is just basically, what we're going to cover today. It's just bulleted items. And Kristen and I are going to reference that as we walk through the agenda today. So there's no need for you to, print it out. It's more so just a reference for you when the class is ended. But if you would like to print it out, feel free to. But this will be more of like a back and forth conversation than anything else. And make sure you ask us questions that you have them.
Yeah, feel free to jump in if you have anything you want to ask. So it's not just us talking all the time as usual.
Right. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. I get sick of hearing myself. Oh, God.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your
You're welcome.
information.
You're welcome. Well, it's, 10 o'clock and hopefully we'll have a few more people come on. We usually find that, by 9:05 or 10:05 or 5 past the scheduled hour, we often have a whole bunch of people logging in this first 5 minutes. So,
And Melissa, isn't that
Yes.
funny? Because if they were 5 minutes late to a listing appointment, would they get the listing?
no, probably not.
What?
They wouldn't.
Unless they called
Mic
30
drop.
minutes ahead and said, hey, I'm running late because of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Estimated arrival time is, you never want to be late unless they know you're going to be late.
Right.
So,
Here we go. Now we get some men
thanks
on
for
the
joining
call.
us.
We thought it was going to be women only here. We were getting a little nervous. Hi, guys.
We'll let the boys in too.
Yeah.
After all, we can't keep all the good stuff to ourselves. When it comes
Right.
to business tricks, right? So, well, I guess I'll begin. Kristen, thank you for co-teaching today.
My pleasure.
This class came up about 2 years ago. Rich Lannon had the idea, and I had the idea that, hey, we were spending a lot of time in masterminds classes talking about, how to be a great co-broker, what great practices are. So we decided that it would be great to share all this knowledge with all of our agents for a multitude of reasons. First of all, it's going to help you to stay calm, whether you're on the buy side of a transaction or a sell side. It's going to help make a great experience for your clients, as well as a great experience for your co-brokes. And it also helps the co-broke to see what a professional you are. And that's great for two reasons, because first of all, it can help you to build your profit share tree here at Keller Williams, or it can, ultimately for the greater good. I find that great practices just elevate the reputation of the realtor in the consumer market. And let's face it, not all realtors are fabulous. Not all salespeople not all agents are actually realtors. So this is just a great, makes sense list of practices that will help you to really differentiate yourself from the crowd, have a great transaction, and help to make your clients super happy and earn you referral business along the way. So are you guys ready to get started?
And for those of you who joined a few minutes after, Melissa's uploaded the paperwork that we're going to be discussing today. So you have a copy of it. So if you want to download it to your computer, you can, use as a reference later on if you'd like.
Yep, it's there for you. Okay, you guys ready to dive in? Let's dive right in. So how to be a great co-broke with Melissa and Kristen.
Yay!
Contrary to what our handout says, it says Rich Landon and Melissa. So number one, for all transactions, just follow the golden rule. This is a do. So this will be a list of do's and don'ts today. So follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. If you show up as a hysterical agent or a domineering agent or a clueless agent, the co-broke is not going to appreciate it. Think about how would you feel if the co-broke showed up in one of those situations, to you. Showed up, high strung and nervous, or, clueless, or a control freak, or trying to overpower. That's not going to make a great impression. So dole out to them what you would like to receive back yourself.
Awesome. Do stay calm. Keep your emotions in check at all times. So as we see from bold, keep your emotions between the lines. Okay. This is a business transaction. Okay. Some agents get all hysterical because they want to, fight with the other co-brokes. They feel like they're doing their seller or buyer a service by doing so. It's not good practice. It just stresses everybody out and causes more issues with your clients. If you are not calm and you're hysterical to your client, then they're going to get hysterical, even if it's something minor. You will look back and say, why did I do that? Now they're upset over this and it's so stupid and so minuscule. So always keep calm. Remember, it's a business transaction. You are there to help facilitate between your seller and the buyer, or the buyer and the seller. Okay. So.
Yeah. And Kristen, don't you find also that if you call your clients, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, or let's use the example of the sell side. So you're representing a seller, you make a call, you're nervous about the information that you have to relay to your seller. For whatever reason you might be nervous, there can be 1,000 reasons for you to be nervous. If you're nervous on the call or on the Zoom call, whether it's phone or Zoom, don't you think they're going to know that? Like they're going to sense that?
100%.
Yeah, and that's not good for them. So
No.
You need to stay calm and create the impression that you have everything under control, even when you don't. And if there are decisions to make, ask them to make those decisions. Okay.
Right. And if I could just interject there too. And if you need to write down what you're going to say to your client and practice it a couple of times before you call, do that. Don't just hang up with the code broker and then call your seller right away. You haven't had time to process it. And again, you need to get in a good frame of mind before you contact them. So keep that in mind. You don't have to make the call in 10 seconds.
Right.
Do it when you're ready.
Yep. 60 seconds of deep breaths will do you a lot of good as well as your clients. So, okay, next item. This is a don't. Don't make the deal a win-lose. Make it a win-win. Someone shouldn't have to win and someone shouldn't have to lose. In this market where it's very apparent that generally sellers have the upper hand, especially in situations of multiple bids, don't create the impression of, I've got you by the throat. Make it a win-win. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about the realtors involved in the transaction. It's about the buyers and the sellers. So don't make it a win-lose, make it a win-win. And that's going to create some great rapport between you and the co-broke, regardless of which side of the transaction you're on.
Yep. And win-win's part of our belief system, right?
It
Win-win
is.
or no deal. So even when you're talking to a co-broke, let them know we want to make this a win-win for both clients. That will just kind of calm them down if they're being a little, I keep using the word hysterical, I don't know why, but I think you must have said it, Melissa, because now it's in my head. If they're just being unrealistic, whatever, just say, hey, listen, we just want to make it a win-win for both sides, and go with that. Awesome. All right. 2, seller listings. What? Melissa, were you gonna say something?
I was just going to say, so those 3 things, we've got 2 do's and a don't for all transactions, regardless of which side of the transaction you're on. So now we're going to talk specifically about how to approach your seller listings. So take it away, Kristen, go ahead.
Awesome. And if any of you want to jump in and ask questions, feel free to, okay? All right, don't make decisions for your sellers. They should make their own decisions. Okay. Again, it kind of goes back to keeping your emotion between the lines. Even if your client says to you, I will never take $350 for this house. I'm not taking a penny less than $400. You still have to go to them and show them the offer. You still need to ask them. Don't just assume that they're not going to take it and be done with the offer at that point. We're going to talk about that a little further as we go through this. But again, this isn't your decision. And just because they said something to you and you listed the property doesn't mean things haven't changed between then and now. Things change all the time. They may have seen another property that they love. Something may be happening with their jobs. I mean, you just don't know. Personal things may come up. So people do change their minds. So make sure that they're making the decision for what's best for them, not for you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, next item, don't play the attorney role. You are not an attorney. Never, ever, ever play the attorney role. If you have any questions, if you're not certain, even if you think you have the answer, but it's more of a legal question, defer to your client's attorney. And also, an attorney is not required in Massachusetts for either buyer or seller to, finalize a transaction. Neither party is required to have representation, but always, always, always encourage your clients to hire their own attorney. You are not an attorney. Where the liability comes in here is, think about the purchase and sale agreement. Back in the day when I first started, almost 19 years ago, it was customary that the listing agent would produce purchase and sale agreement, and then the attorneys would take it and change it as they needed to. I recommend not even going that route. Don't create the form. Let one of the attorneys be the initiator of the purchase and sale agreement. Again, you are not an attorney. This applies to offers as well. If you're not sure of language, if you've never used the language before, if the language you want to insert into an offer doesn't come right off of a form that's produced by either the Mass Association or the Greater Boston, don't put the language in. Call an attorney or call a colleague who may have used it before, who you think might have experience in that area. You are not an attorney. Don't play the attorney role. Don't tell them not to worry. Let the attorney do that. Okay. Right.
All the calls, I will say, all the calls that I got after closing that with clients that would call with issues, I would ask them, well, who is your attorney? And every time they would say, we didn't have one.
Yeah. So
Those always end up being, for some reason, there was always issues. So am I on mute or no?
No, we can hear you.
So, keep that in mind too.
That's a
Awesome.
great point. And, an attorney once said to me that the best reason to hire an attorney is to handle anything that isn't expected. Did you need an attorney? Did you need to pay the fee? If everything goes exceptionally smooth in a transaction, well, in retrospect, maybe you're going to feel like, oh, maybe I could have saved myself that expense. But if something doesn't go according to the plan, that's when you'll be grateful that you hired the attorney. And if you haven't already hired one, then you could be embroiled in something that's pretty ugly. So again, don't the attorney role, let the attorneys do that.
Yeah. And with COVID and everything, just things that are going on here. I mean, there's
Especially.
things you're not going to know what to put in there to protect your client. And there could be things that you're not aware of that you could risk losing your client's deposits. So
Right.
unless you're an attorney, don't be one.
Don't play the
Awesome.
role.
Yep.
Okay. Next one. Don't assume anything. Spell it all out. Confirm, 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 confirm. Everything in writing. Everything. One area where I would caution you to be very specific about this is inclusions and exclusions. Start them on the offer. If you see that the MLS listing says, washer, dryer, refrigerator included, don't assume that those things are just going to transfer onto the purchase and sale and will magically still be there when you do your final walkthrough with your clients. Or when you're, I should say, because we're talking about sellers. So if your sellers have said that they'll include these things, just make it legit, make it set in stone, put it on the offer, put it on the purchase and sale. If any of you have shown my listings, if you've submitted offers on my listings, you'll note that I attach a page called additional and important information to the MLS listings. That's where I'm actually going to spell out washer, dryer included. And then under offer submission instructions, I might state something to the effect of, buyer agents, if your clients wish for the washer, dryer, refrigerator to be included, please confirm this on the offer. And 9 times out of 10, it still comes in without those things noted. Where this is really important is after the home inspection, if there is any additional negotiation about anything, you want to reiterate in the purchase and sale what is included, what is excluded. Make sure before you get to the purchase and sale that both parties understand what this renegotiation has entailed. And the reason I bring that up is from personal experience. I once was involved in a condo sale where there was an outstanding special assessment of a few $1,000s. Maybe it was $2,000. And it was represented that the seller would pay that in full prior to the closing, and it would be reflected on the 6D certificate. So, we get through the transaction, we get to the purchase and sale, and the seller now had no intention of paying off that $2,000 special assessment because they had just negotiated like a repair and a $3,000 price reduction. So that became a real hurdle, and ultimately the deal ended up falling apart. So you want to make sure that you have reiterated, confirm, 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 and put everything in writing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do pay attention to the details, inclusions. Did you just read that one? No, you didn't. Well, it's kind of like that. We kind of talked about, all right. Okay. Do pay attention to the details, inclusions, exclusions, offer details, contingencies, confirm all previous aspects at the time of offer acceptance, make it onto the purchase and sales. That's super important. We're going to talk about that in a second, unless otherwise renegotiated, and ensure you receive the deposit check. Remind the buyer's agents to tell the buyer it will be cashed ASAP. So, Melissa just talked about this a little bit. If you, let's say the buyer and the seller agree to leave the refrigerator, for instance, and it doesn't get on the purchase and sales, and now the seller takes the refrigerator, well, the purchase and sales trumps the offer. So now it's not included. Okay. Now that's more on the buyer side because now they don't have the refrigerator. But again, that doesn't really help that you said one thing or agreed to it and then it didn't happen. So again, as professionals, we really need to check on both sides to make sure everything is accurate so that we don't have any issues moving forward, because it's going to be a problem. And usually they find that stuff out at the final walkthrough. Then there's holdbacks, and you've done such a great job through the whole transaction that things like this can just make it like everything that you've done that was great, forgettable. So make sure that every single thing is on the purchase and sales. To Melissa's point, if anything's renegotiated, if you've discussed anything, made changes to anything, make sure that it's on there. Let's say if in the MLS it says, refrigerators included, but the buyer's agent doesn't put the refrigerator included in the offer, it doesn't get in the purchase and sales, well, the seller can now keep it,
Mhm.
even though they agreed to it before. So it's very important that you double check everything. And even though you may, and I don't know who does this or not, but send a detailed list of all the things that are with the transaction, like this is when the home inspection is, this is what's included, this is what's excluded, this is when this is, when this is, and you send to the attorneys, doesn't actually mean it's going to get on the purchase and sales. You have to double check the attorney's work too.
Right.
Okay, so keep that in mind. And then as far as the deposit checks, get those deposit checks. Don't put the home as contingent until you have the check in hand. Because again, the buyer could change their mind afterwards, and now you've had a contingent and now it's back on the market just because you didn't get a check. So it's, the offer is not binding until you have the deposit check.
Right. And in Massachusetts, without some sort of an escrow deposit, what is referred to as consideration, without the consideration, the contract is not legally binding unless the agreement was written that there was no consideration. So without that deposit check, it's not a valid acceptance of an offer without that exchange of the cash. So make sure you get that. Okay, item do. Acknowledge receipt of all offers, even ones you know the seller will reject or not even entertain, especially in cases of multiple bids. Okay, so who recently has been involved in bidding on a property where there have been multiple bids? I mean, it happens all the time, right? It's just the way the market we're in right now. So if as a buyer agent, you've submitted an offer and you've never heard from the listing agent as to whether or not it was received, let alone if the seller would, entertain it, or maybe, you're in the running or the offer's rejected. If the buyer agent if the seller agent hasn't indicated they got your offer, how does that feel? Kind of stinks. So don't do that to your colleagues ever. Don't put a co-broke in that situation. Make sure you confirm receipt. Just shoot them back a quick email. Thanks, got your offer. We'll be back in touch. Doesn't have to be anything long and involved. In fact, the easiest way to do it is to reply by email, because then you have less time invested and you have your paper trail of, yes, we received it, and yes, I will get back to you. And then if it's a rejected offer, I'm sorry, we've rejected the offer, or the seller has gone another route. Make sure you confirm every single offer that you receive.
And with that too, you never know, because if you don't have those conversations with the co-brokes and the offer that you did take falls apart for some reason, you may need to go back to that agent begging them to, talk to their client about, resubmitting another offer. So play well with others always.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do present every written offer to your sellers. You have a legal fiduciary responsibility to do this. Once you have a written offer, you must present it to your sellers, period. I don't even know what else to say about that.
Right, even if the property is already under agreement, contingent or under agreement, you still have a responsibility to present those offers. You do. This is very important legally if you're representing an estate in a sale of a property. In some cases, not in every case, and again, I'm not an attorney, so I couldn't tell you exactly what the stipulations are, but in some cases, until the gavel has come down and the judge has approved the sale in situations where a license to sell is needed, the court could have the responsibility to entertain every offer right up until the gavel hits the desk and the license is issued. So make sure that, again, you're presenting every single offer.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Did you just say even if you have a signed P&S, you still present offers? Because the house at that point would technically be off the market, correct?
Yes, true. Even if you have the purchase and sale agreement, you still have an obligation to present the offer to the seller. Now, 99% of the time, again, unless it's an estate sale with very specific parameters of how the court will consider offers, you still have an obligation to present the offer, but the seller still has the obligation to stay in the transaction that they've already legally committed to. But you still have a responsibility to present those offers.
So what happens if both parties have a signed PNS agreement, then the seller gets another offer and decides that they want to go with the new offer?
Well, they
Then-
can't, unless there's a way for them to legally get out of the purchase and sale under a term that they've already agreed to, or there's some exceptional, breach of performance, like, the seller dies.
Right, but you still have to present the offer.
You still have to present it. Yes,
Okay.
it doesn't mean the seller
Okay.
has the opportunity to entertain it. You still have to present it.
Okay,
Does
It
that
would
make-
be a backup in case something was to happen.
Exactly.
okay.
Mhm.
So at that point, would you call the, like the seller's agent, the buyer's agent that's making that offer, and let them know that the property's already under agreement, but you will show the seller the offer?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, okay,
Great. Good work.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see.
Do.
Next, or is that Kristen? Go ahead, Kristen. I'm sorry.
Do advise all buyers agents that their offer has not been accepted. Don't leave anyone hanging ever. And again, we touched upon this a few minutes ago. How would you feel when you have a buyer and you're putting an offer in and you have no idea if the listing agent got it or not, and your client's calling you going, what's going on? You're like, I have no idea. Don't put someone else in that position. Because again, you may have to go back to them and beg them to re-engage their client. So let them know. And honestly, even if your client, I do this as a matter of practice. I am always very appreciative of the offers I get, even if it's like the most terrible offer I've ever seen. We'll offer you $2. Thank you so much for the offer. My sellers really appreciate you putting the offer in. Please, let your buyers know that we appreciate that. However, your offer hasn't been accepted. They did choose to go with another offer. However, I will definitely keep you posted. If should anything happen, I will be sure to get back to you and let you know. You kind of give them a little hook there, but again, it's kind of like, still be engaged. I wish it worked out, but it kind of didn't thing. So that if you do need to go back, that those people will still, entertain, working with you. I've had to do it so many times on one property, because there'll be multiple offers. They'd take one, they would fall apart. Then I go back to them all again, and then I'd take one again. And like one of them that finally bought it, I went back like 4 times. And they had put the offer in all the 4 times, and they finally got it. And they were the last one that put the offer in originally. So you have to keep those good relationships with the co-brokes so that they do stay engaged. Because remember, we're dealing with people, and a lot of people with their egos and their tempers and whatnot, they'll just say, forget it. Oh, okay, she was, or whatever. And we're not, they won't even discuss it with their buyers or let them know it's even available anymore. Because it's a matter of, they want to win. So be nice, be professional, and just, again, you never know when you're going to need them again.
Okay, next item. Do check out the buyer agent's track record on the MLS. So why would you want to do this? Well, first of all, first you want to make sure that they have the opportunity to be compensated. Speaking selfishly, you want to make sure they have the opportunity to be compensated, that they are indeed a member of the MLS, or that their broker is, and that the brokerage firm or the agent submitting the offer to you, to your sellers, is entitled to that compensation. So that would be first. Second, a great reason to do that is because you want to know who you're dealing with. If you have a series of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 offers to choose from in a multiple bid scenario, it may be a good decision to work with someone who has a little more experience, or maybe not. It doesn't mean that just because an agent who submitted an offer has only closed 2 transactions in their career that it won't be a great experience. But you certainly just want to know, okay, who are the veterans, who are those with some experience, and who are the newbies? Who looks as though they've got their act together in terms of how they submitted the paperwork, and who's out there in left field. Sometimes an agent with 20 years of experience can be the worst one to co-broke with, because they still handwrite everything and make so many assumptions that none of that stuff that's so important ends up in their handwritten offers that you can't read anyway. So just know who you're dealing with. It's just sound practice to know who you're dealing with. It's easy to do that. Look up their name you can go to the MLS under tools, under agent rosters or agent information, office information. Click on that, enter their name. Or if you can't find them by their name, maybe their recorded name with MLS is a little different than the name that they might be using on the offer. Look for their name on their roster, click on their name. You can get their MLS ID number, and you can then enter their MLS ID number as a search criteria. So you would want to choose all property types, all statuses of transactions, and you want to go back a few years. So you would enter, say today less, say you want to look at 3 years, you can enter 3 years or 36 months. And then toward the bottom of the MLS criteria, you can search their MLS ID, and you can click on search
List and sales agent.
or listing or seller or buyer agent, and you can enter their MLS ID and see what their track record looks like.
List or sales agent.
List or sales agent, exactly.
Mhm.
Sorry, Missy. So you get their ID number from when you originally looked them up, and then you take that number and put it where?
You can put it in as search criteria as listing or sale agent.
All the way down the bottom on the left.
Mhm.
Where you would add in, like if you were looking for like a ranch home and you wanted to like separate all the homes.
Okay.
So you'd click list or sales agent and put their ID in there.
Mhm.
But remember, you want to go under like sold, and then you have to put the time frame in, and you want to click on
At the top.
yeah, you also want to click on like single family, multifamily condo too.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
If you're having trouble finding that, contact either me or Kristen outside of the call when we're finished, and we're happy to walk you through the roster. Okay.
And I will caution you to Melissa's point, just because someone's been in the business a long time doesn't mean you should automatically take their offer too. Sometimes they're worse, to be honest. They're stuck in their ways. They may not know how to use the technology. They may just have a humongous ego. They may be the type that like to fight a lot. So, sometimes the newer agents are better. I mean, sometimes I'll just be like, okay, this person's going to need help, but I will help them so that we get through this transaction. So you got to keep that in mind. And the other thing too is when you're searching for people, take it with a grain of salt, because sometimes, like I just did a co-broke with this great guy, but he didn't show up as any sales, but he's on a team. So I really don't know how many sales he's done. He could be carrying the team for all I know. I have no idea. He was fantastic. So sometimes you really don't know if it's really their numbers or not, or maybe you see that they, 2 years ago, they did a lot of business and all of a sudden they've done nothing for the last 2 years. Well, maybe they joined a team, or maybe they're under something else, or maybe they created their own team and now it's called We Sell Homes, team or whatever. And all the volumes going into that. So do your investigating, but again, use it as a grain of salt. You don't really, the more transactions you do, the more they are out with, other agents and hear us talking about people or whatever, you'll kind of get an idea of like who to kind of stay away from and who's really good to work with. So keep that in mind.
I just have one more question. I know looking up the agent, but you said the agency to make sure that they're certified. Or
Well, to Kristen's point, as she just said, maybe you can't find the agent. Maybe they're on a team. They may not have, their personal identification number might not reflect their volume on the MLS.
Oh.
So you just want to make sure that whoever has submitted the property is associated with a brokerage firm that is
that's what I meant. Yeah.
and a member of the MLS. Because
Yeah,
technically we're compensating the office, and then the office compensates the agent.
Correct. But you had mentioned, I'm sorry, you had mentioned to look up the brokerage to make sure that they're certified. Is there a way to do that?
Well, the office has an MLS membership ID number as well.
Okay.
And
all right.
any agent, or I should say, a licensed salesperson can only join the MLS when they're affiliated with a broker.
Mhm.
You
Okay.
have to have your own broker's license to be identified as an individual, as opposed to affiliated with, a Keller Williams office or a C21 office. Or
Okay. Just wanted to
does
clarify.
that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah,
it does. Thank you very
And
much.
Margaret too, I had a transaction years ago where I got an offer from someone who wasn't the one that showed the property, but worked at the same office. When I looked them up in MLS, I couldn't find him. So I said to him, I can't find you in MLS. He's like, oh, I'm working under so-and-so onto their MLS, and they work together and blah, blah, blah.
I
So of
see.
course I had to call him. So that's very rare, but it could happen.
Yes.
But it's good to just double check and make sure like it's a legit thing and that, you know what you're dealing with.
Thank you.
All right. Do set expectations with your buyer's agent. Know who you're dealing with, personality type, etc. So, you know, again, especially if it's a multiple offer situation, sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Sure. Absolutely. They'll agree with you because they just want, you know, their offer to be accepted. But again, you know, do your best to set the expectations of how you like to work, what you're expecting out of them, you know, like, hey, you know, this is how I like to work. I like to, you know, communications and, let's email and let's keep on track with everything. Or, or if you even say like, please don't call me after 7 at night, whatever your expectations are, let them know that. Because as you get into the transaction, people kind of can disappear and you may not be able to get a hold of them. And it's an issue. Another thing would be like the purchase and sales deposit check. You just say to them, we require that it's a bank check. So is that going to pose a problem? You know, and they'll say, no, great. Because a lot of times they'll just give us a personal check. And if you're closing quickly, that check has to clear. So it's always best, again, to get whatever your, best practices are and how you want to work to alleviate any issues moving forward. Let them know ahead of time and then follow up in writing. Per our conversation, when the purchase and sales is being signed, we require a bank check in the amount of blah, 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 dropped off at my office at blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Okay, let's move on. We actually have a lot of agenda to cover, and we've only got 30 minutes left. So let's
We
keep
like to
moving.
talk.
And we
Let's
do
go.
like to talk, and we have a lot of experience to share with you, and you all have a lot of experience to share with us, and your questions are probably the most valuable part of this conversation. So let's just keep moving, and if we run short on time, there will be specific things that we'll want to cover, and we can omit some others. This next due item has never been more important than it is right now. Pre-offer acceptance call to the buyer's lender. Is the lender on the ball or out in left field, and you want to confirm several items? So our handout here says 4 items, but take out your pens because it's actually, it's really 7 items presently under our current conditions. So you want to ask every single lender on every offer you receive. Did you pull credit? Did you review the numbers with the buyers, the borrowers, so that they anticipate and understand what their monthly expenses will be at the current rate at this price? Number 3, did you review income and asset documents? Really, number 4, you want to add there, did you review their tax returns? Number 5, what are your TRID guideline dates? What does that mean? What does the timeline look like for you, Mr. Lender? And really what you want to know is how many weeks do they need, or how many days do they need from purchase and sale signing to commitment letter? And then the second thing, how many days do they need for commitment letter to clear to close and actually close the transaction? Some lenders only need, 21 days to commit a loan. Some need 5 or 6 weeks to commit a loan. Some can commit and close in 5 days. Some can commit and need 14 days. So you want to ask that question. It's so important because you don't want to embroil your seller into an offer acceptance where they think they're closing in 30 days. And they don't even have, the appraisal finished in 30 days, let alone the commitment issued and the clear to close issued. So you want to make sure you understand that. If timing is important for your seller, you don't want to accept an offer where the timeline that's been offered in writing is one that is just completely unrealistic. So number 6, what's the 6th item? Do the borrowers qualify, excuse me, do the borrowers qualify for a different loan program if for any reason this particular scenario that's laid out in paper doesn't come to fruition? That's a simple yes or no question. You're not asking, what is it and what does it look like? The lender may just blab and tell you all that, but that's very important. If this scenario doesn't work out, do they qualify for a different loan program? And you hope that they're going to say yes. And then the last item, number 7, exceptionally important right now. And you can phrase it again as a yes or no question. Does the borrower's line of employment, wait, let me think. I'm sorry. I would start the question this way. If we happen to experience another lockdown Is the buyer's income in jeopardy based on their line of employment? That is a simple yes or no question. It's not, what do they do for a living, which you can't ask. What if they lose their job? Do they still qualify? You can't ask. So just ask the borrower, are they involved in any type of a line of employment that could be affected by a lockdown? So that if there is a lockdown, is their income going to be interrupted so they no longer qualify? Very important. And all those questions, they may sound very familiar to a lot of you. Our family member at Radius, Bob Malone, he was the one who suggested about 2 years ago that we start asking all these questions. If you're not asking these questions for your sellers and even for your borrowers, you're doing your clients a disservice. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Don't attend the home inspection. If you do, don't micromanage the session. Don't message or call the sellers with every little question while the inspection is going on. Do stay calm and simply allow access to the property. Never touch the radon test. Ensure pets are secure, set for inspections. The reason why we suggest not to attend the home inspection is because if they come up with some items, even if it's not actually true, it's just the home inspector's opinion, we will need to disclose it should the transaction fall apart. So it's always best for you not to attend if at all possible.
Yep.
Because it's a Mass Law 93A, right, Melissa?
Exactly. The less you know that the seller doesn't know, the better. You are an extension of the seller. Things you learn, physical aspects of the property that you learn may require disclosure with another party if this offer doesn't work out.
And if you tell your sellers that, they're totally fine with it. Don't think they're saying, no, you have to be there. And if they do, then whatever. But most of the time they'll understand why and they're fine with it.
Exactly.
A question on that.
Yeah.
So something does come up in the inspection and it's then mentioned to the seller. Doesn't it then become something that you have to disclose going forward?
So,
Yeah, I mean, the buyer's agent will call the listing agent. Never look at the home inspection report either. Don't accept the home inspection report if they want to send it to you either, because again, that's more information that you have. But again, the home inspection is based on someone's opinion.
Opinion, right.
You know, so it really, I think, depends on really what it is. You know, I mean, if it's like major issues that you can actually see, you just didn't notice when you listed it, that's going to be a big thing, or something that you may need to have looked at.
Rich Lannon had a great script for that. And once the home inspection was scheduled, he would call the buyer agent and say, thanks for letting me know. You're clear to go. The home is yours for the inspection period from this time to that time. Let's set some expectations. If there's anything that buyers are concerned about, or if they're going to ask for repairs or concession, do not tell me what the whole laundry list is, and do not send me a copy of the inspection report. I don't want it. If there's something that your buyers want, let me know just those items. Don't give me the whole litany, just those items. What are the items that are make or break for your clients? Let's talk about just those.
Mhm.
Yep.
And he used to say too, like, even if the buyer's agent sent him via email the home inspection report, they would call me. He's like, no, I never got it. Even if you got it, you just delete it. Nope, didn't see it, you know,
Yeah.
so. Okay.
Also related to inspection items, don't touch the radon testing kit ever under any circumstances if the buyers do test for radon. It's the buyer's and the buyer's agent's responsibility to manage that kit solely. It's okay to provide access to the property for collection purposes so long as you don't touch the kit, the canisters, the electronic device, whatever might be there to measure the radon. But related to this, also do is secure the area to be tested for the radon from pets and children. Kids, cats, dogs, etc. They're going to be curious about what that device is or what those canisters are. So touching the device or the canisters will affect the radon testing results. And you don't want to interfere with that. It's a liability issue. And FYI, the electronic device, the box left behind, will show evidence of tampering and void the test results, which can potentially cost your sellers a lot of money or even the deal. Okay. That's the deal on radon.
Perfect. So you kind of hit on both of those. So that's great.
Yep.
Do tell buyer's agent in advance you do not want a copy of the home. We already talked about that. So let's
Yep.
skip ahead. All right. Do or not to do draft or do your own purchase and sales. We talked about that. So we'll skip ahead. Do stay on top of the buyer's appraisal process. Get the appraiser in ASAP. Always meet the appraiser yourself Do not leave this to the buyer's agent, because they'll point out all the bad things and you want to point out all the good things. It's your role to meet the appraiser. And when appraisers call you to talk about the past listings, talk to them. You know, you're here, the seller has to sell the house twice, once to the buyer and once to the appraiser, okay? So you're selling the house again. So, you know, tell them all the updates that were done. Tell them about other homes that sold or anything that you know about other properties, because you might have been in them and most likely that appraiser hasn't been. So also, I always ask, do you have a copy of the purchase and sales? Would you like me to send it to you? Now, should they already have it? Yes. Do they always? No. So even though it's not my job to do it because I'm the listing agent, I still do it because I want to make the appraiser's job as easy as possible, because I want him to appraise that house out at what my seller's accepted offer was, you know, what they're accepting. So play nice with them, do what you can, smile, sure, show them around, you know, try to get them in on their time frame as best as you can. Because again, at the end of the day, they could blow up the whole thing.
All right, let's tick off these next several items right in a row and really quick. They're kind of straightforward. Do check in with the buyer's agent and the lender throughout their loan approval process. Do call the buyer agent or the lender a few days prior to the mortgage commitment date, then wait to call them again until the morning of the day after it was due. So this is not necessarily something that everyone will always be comfortable with or that all of you will be comfortable with, but listen, you need to be on top of that commitment date before the commitment happens. What you don't want to do is call the lender or the buyer agent the morning of the commitment and say, hey, how does the commitment look? Because if that buyer agent isn't on the ball, and if for any reason the commitment passes and the loan isn't approved, you could be costing your sellers the opportunity to keep that escrow deposit. I mean, granted, no seller really wants to do that, but they're entitled to it. If what the commitment extension was never asked for nor granted, and now the buyer can't close. So you could cost your sellers some money there.
Mm-hmm.
And do definitely stay on top of closing procedures to avoid any snags, delays, or misunderstandings. So on the handout, we've got a whole list of things here for you. Your commission bill, minimum 10 days prior to closing. Get the buyer agent's commission bill as well. You'll need to get the smoke and the carbon monoxide certificate well before closing. Final water meter reading, the Title V well in advance if septic is applicable. Oil adjustment, minimum 10 days prior to closing. Arrange for the natural gas transfer, the electricity transfer, rented hot water heater. If the hot water heater is rented, we need to know that. Trash bill or any condo fee adjustments. The 6D certificate for condos, insurance certificate for condos, an excess deposit check for your sellers if this is applicable. And for tenant occupied properties, you're going to need to have made provision for the estoppel certificates, which is transfer of first, last, and security deposits for any landlords holding those things for their tenants. The tenants are intact while the property is conveyed. Okay.
And on the oil adjustment, also propane.
Yep.
Sometimes people don't even realize like propane is kind of like oil and that needs to be read as well. And sometimes those tanks are rented too. So I've seen a lot of agents that have had to pay for that because they totally didn't even realize it was propane in the house.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
Next item. This is my favorite one. This can make or break your reputation with the buyer agent. Go for it, Kristen.
Do carry the co-broke check to closing if possible. Now we can't co anymore, so that's another story.
Right.
See your MCA well in advance of the closing date and the seller's excess deposit check if applicable. So again, just because we're not going to closings anymore, but when we did and when we do again, bring the checks. You know, co-brokes want to get paid. Don't be that. We're not that company. We have them in advance, but don't wait till last minute to tell the MCA either, because that's not fair. Okay. Right now, what I do is, hey, I want them to know that I want to pay them. So days before, I'll say your check's ready, or it's going to be ready on whatever day. Would you like us to mail it to your office, or would you like to pick it up in our office in Braintree? And then let them decide.
Right.
Yeah. So just be like, let them know that you know that they want to get paid.
Another item for closing, do properly credit the buyer agent as the selling agent on the MLS. Never give yourself credit. The buyer agent deserves the credit.
do offer the co-broker closing gift if you want to. Definitely write them a note. And again, it's really going to be based on, you know, your finances and what you feel is a good gift for them if you choose to do so.
And last, do refer the co-broke to your team leader. Absolutely.
Yep. Grow the office.
All right,
Awesome.
moving
Number 3.
on.
Yep.
Buyer listings.
Okay. Don't make decisions for your buyers. They should make their own decisions.
Don't play the
Obviously.
attorney role. You're not an attorney.
Do talk with your buyer's lender prior to writing an offer. Vet the pre-approval. So again, ask the same questions that Melissa talked about when you're the seller's agent. Ask the lender the same as the buyer's agent. Don't you want to know the answers to these questions? Especially if you're writing offers on a Saturday, a day before a holiday or on a holiday, and you need, you know, if you ask these questions, you'll know how much time they need to get to closing. So don't wait and say, well, I can't call them on Sunday or I can't get a hold of them now. Do your due diligence, make your life easier. And again, do you really want to take time away from your family to be showing buyers property, come to find out that they've never checked their credit, they don't know even that they work, they haven't looked at their W-2s. Listen, you could be spending your time either with another client or with your family.
Exactly.
Or at the spa, whatever, watching Netflix, who cares? Something better than working with someone that can't buy a house.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you're going to see as we tick through all these items, the repetition of these. Don't assume anything. Spell it all out. Confirm, 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 and get everything in writing always. Do pay attention to the details, inclusions, exclusions, offer details, contingencies. We covered that on the sales side. It's applicable for the buy side. As is, do check out the seller agent's track record on the MLS.
Melissa, if I can interject there,
Yeah.
for the buyer side, you know, read what the listing agent wrote. Be the better buyer's agent. If they wrote subject to the seller finding suitable housing, write that on your offer so that the agent knows that you know and that your buyer knows that they need to find a house and they're okay with it.
Right.
Okay, because you're going to stand out because most agents won't do those things. If something's excluding the swing set and your client really doesn't want it, exclude the swing set. You know, read the MLS. If it says excludes washer and dryer, but your client really wants it, fine, add it in. Okay, but make sure that each item that's on there that you're aware of it and that then the seller's agent knows that you're aware of it, whether it's included or excluded. Okay, or if there are any certain contingencies.
Mhm.
Okay.
Definitely. So I think we're on do deliver the offer and P&S checks immediately and remind the buyers that they will be cashed ASAP. The worst thing is if a buyer gives you their check and says, can you ask them not to cash it for 4 days because I have to transfer the funds and wait for them to clear? No, that check needs to be deposited immediately. So you want to have that conversation with your buyer, not only about needing to have their check in hand at acceptance of the offer or signing the P&S, but that the funds need to be immediately available when that check is handed off to the seller's agent's office.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Especially with the purchase and sales, you know, when you're writing the offer, are you going to have access to $20,000 within 10 days? Let them know what the offer so that they're if they have to transfer money, they can do it then. Don't tell them that the day the purchase and sales deposits due. Right? Don't include check routing and account number. Oh gosh, this one drives me nuts. All right, don't include check routing or account numbers if a copy of a check is supplied. These numbers should be omitted, never included. Cover these numbers with paper or Post-it, then make a copy. So when your clients are sending you a copy of a check, usually during offer, just say to them, cover the routing and accounting numbers. Put a pen over it, a sticky note, another piece of paper, whatever. Have them take a picture and then send it to you. Okay, make sure you tell them that because they're not going to do that. And then when you're sending those checks out to, you know, the listing agent, whatever, do the same thing. Do not put your clients' account information out there. Corey Morris used to work for a photocopy company. And when you photocopy on those photocopier machines, there's a drive inside that saves all that information. So when we get rid of the copy machine, if there's account numbers on people's checks, that's going to be on the drive in that machine. Now we know to destroy it, like to take it out and destroy it before we get rid of the copy machine. But I'm sure we only know that because of Corey. You know what I mean? When he joined here. So, you know, you're dealing with so many other offices and people that don't really even care or pay attention to that stuff. So do not send your client's routing or account number around via email, text, or anything.
Right. Okay, moving on. We've got about 10 minutes to go. This is a repetition too. Do set expectations with the seller's agent, know who you're dealing with, personality type, etc.
Okay. Do set realistic expectations with your buyer concerning home inspection results. What can you live with versus what do you want the seller to address? So make them understand that this is for informational purposes, okay? That we're, you know, they can't just be nitpicky. If they knew that there were cracks in the driveway when we wrote the offer, they can't go back to the seller and say, oh, there's cracks in the driveway. They saw that already. You know, if it's foundation issues, mold in the attic, things they didn't see before, absolutely. But if they're going to go, if they say to you, well, all right, we'll put this offer in, we'll go 20,000 over, and then we'll deal with the rest of it, home inspection. You know, we'll try to get more money out of the home inspection. That's not good. They're going to want to try to, you know, hustle the seller to, you know, lower the price. And that's just not good. So again, set the expectations with the clients. And this is why Melissa and I always say, have a buyer consultation. Go over the stuff with them. The agents that are not having buyer consultants, you're leaving yourself open to having bad experience with your clients and having unnecessary issues and having your clients not trust you, because things are going to come up that you're going to be backpedaling and telling them as things are happening.
Exactly. Next item, advise the seller's agent if the buyer is testing for radon. Remember to arrange the appointment to pick up the kit as well, and advise if the buyer is testing for lead paint, and ensure the listing agent receives a copy of the lead inspection report, which is actually required by law. Worst experience sometimes you can have is you get a call from the seller agent who says, we didn't know you were testing for radon. And the seller's calling their agent saying, what's this electronic box in my basement? Or, you know, what are these little canisters that my cat's been kicking around the family room downstairs? Make sure you let the seller agent know that you're testing for radon and put the plan in place to pick it up prior to leaving the property, okay?
Because the doors have to be closed and the seller needs to know that radon kit's in there. They can't be opening the windows or the doors in the basement or whatever. I'm selling a property actually right now. And I was talking to my seller about something and he's like, so how about, you know, what about the radon? Like, how'd the radon test come back? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, there's radon kits in my basement. I'm like, there are? They never told me. Now, mind you, you're supposed to pick it up within like 2 to 3 days. Right, between so many hours, what is it, 48 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
This was like day 5 and they were still in there. So I said, can you go take a picture of it? So we went down, took a picture of it and showed me, and they were in there. Never told me or anything. So I called the buyer's agent. I said, I just talked to my seller and they told me that there's radon kits in their basement. She's like, there are? I'm like, weren't you at the home inspection? She's like, yeah, but I didn't know they did it. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you need to go get it. Because this is probably invalid now. Fine for me, because I'm the seller's agent, but that's pretty bad. That's not good representation of the buyers, because now we don't even know if there is radon in that house or not.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
Next few items we can kind of tick off. These are just good practices. Do ensure all lights that you turned on, you turn off, and return the heat or the air conditioning to the temps that you had found them at when you first entered the property. And do ensure you've locked and secured the property departure. Don't forget the back door. And do refer the appraiser back to the seller's agent if you happen to get the call. Access is the seller agent's responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't assume that they're just going to call them, go, oh no, I'm not the listing agent, click, because then it's more of a delay.
They might have your information and not the seller's information. It's just cooperative, and make sure that the appraiser is in touch with the proper person.
Yep. Do check in with the seller's agent and the lender throughout the process. Do advise the seller's agent of receipt or need of extensions for the commitment letter 3 days prior. You got to watch that commitment date, because again, I mean, we could tell you a million stories. You know, I've had a buyer's agent, yep, commitment, fine, great. And then then it fell apart and they wanted they wanted their purchase and sales deposit back, and we would not give it to them. Because it's the seller's money now. And that's a whole conversation for a different time, but you have to watch that. You have to protect your client's money, 100%.
You do.
Do accompany your clients on their final walkthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're not gonna give them the lockbox.
Yep, definitely. And do relay any issues found at the final walkthrough immediately upon delivery or discovery. Don't blindside the sellers and their agent and the closing attorney at the closing table. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. I bring that up from experience where I once sold a condo where the buyers were just impossible about every single item. The sellers agreed to take care of everything. This was in a much slower market. We get to the closing table. I was at the walkthrough, but I got to the closing table and the buyers now wouldn't close because the toilet that the sellers agreed to more safely secure to the tile floor was still not tight enough for the buyer's liking. And they held up the closing over a loose toilet. So don't do that to a seller agent ever, okay? Don't wanna
And the
do
other, no, and my other recommendation too, and you could talk to Nicole Connor, she's got some stories about this. Do your final walkthrough the day of the closing, not the night before.
Right.
Okay, because, for instance, Nicole's gone into closings, after the closing, and the pipes have been missing from the night before in the house, like copper pipes gone, and they've already gone to record. One time Tim went to actually the day of closing, Nicole was at the closing, Tim went to the house, and there were people in there destroying the kitchen and they weren't even on record yet. Yeah, crazy. Oh, crazy. We could all write books. So do it, as a buyer's agent, do it the morning of, so at least there's only a couple of hours there time span between when you saw it and when your clients are going to own it.
Exactly. And on that too, if I could say something about acceptance of the deed, which isn't on our handout, but make sure that you've set expectations with your sellers or your buyers prior to the closing about what broom clean means and about when the sellers have to vacate and when the buyers can anticipate getting into the property. So you don't want the buyers to say to you, showing up at 8 a.m. The closing is scheduled for 2 o'clock. What if we don't get to record? That's a huge problem for your buyer, right? So any deliveries or factors that the buyer has scheduled to get into the property, you want to make sure they're arranged in such a way that they'll happen after the deed is recorded. And conversely, you want to make sure that the seller
Bob.
Yeah.
Can you just put yourself on mute because we can hear the car?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, Melissa, I couldn't.
That's okay. You just want to make sure your sellers have vacated by the time of the walkthrough. And just let them know, listen, the night prior to closing, have 110% of your stuff out of there and finish your cleanup at the property. Just do that. It's great practice. Let them anticipate that they're going to have to find somewhere else to stay the night before closing, be it with a friend, a relative, or a hotel.
Yeah, could you imagine closing on a property because you saw it the night before and then your clients call you and say, oh, the basement's flooded?
No.
And the water had been there like for 24 hours just running? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So offer a co-broker closing gift and refer to your team leader.
Yep. And, with that in mind, refer the co-broke to your team leader. Oh, I still have Kristen on here. I have to change that.
It's okay. Yeah, don't refer them to me.
This is really your time to shine and really create some strong bonds with our co-brokes out there, just given, and with our clients as well, just given the extenuating circumstances that everyone is living under right now. This is a time when we're all in this together as professionals. Elevate your own reputation in the business, help the buyer agent or the seller agent do that as well. We're all in this together. Let's be great co-brokes. Let's be the expression of what we say our KW culture is. Practice that out on the road and just build your fabulous reputation by being a fabulous co-broke.
Yep. And remember, if you're not, you're going to have issues moving forward. If, like, let's say, Melissa and I, we just have like this terrible co-broke and we're mean to each other, whatever. And then one of us has the listing and one of us has a buyer on a property and her seller really wants to sell and my buyer really wants that house, but Melissa and I have had issues. Melissa's probably, if they have multiple offers, not going to want to work with me. And that's not good for my buyer.
No.
So again, I mean, you're representing your buyer and you need to do everything you can to protect them and represent them. And if you have a bad reputation, I mean, because I know agents that their poor clients have lost on so many houses and they don't even know it. it's because their agent has a bad reputation.
Right.
So, and who wants to be that person anyways?
Yeah, nobody.
Does anyone have any questions? What do you think? Did we get any ahas? Was it a good refresher? We got a two thumbs up.
Great.
Anybody want to say anything? Don't be shy.
Yeah, it was really good. I learned a lot.
Great.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah,
Um,
this is a great refresher.
Great. Thanks, Margaret.
Yeah.
Melissa,
Yes. Oh, feedback.
wait a second. You, that form that you were talking about that you list, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm doing this. Can you post that?
Oh, yeah. So Melissa, some people are saying that they can't, I can see it, but some other people can't see it. It's
Do you
I
mean
can't.
probably the top.
the agenda?
Yeah, you posted at
Class,
9:58.
Yeah, it posted at 9:58 this morning. I'll post it
Can you
now.
try to do it again? Yeah.
And we'll stay on just a couple of minutes for you to download it. But we're at 11:01. I would think actually if somebody else were scheduled to use the account, they would have already logged on by now, but let's see.
I can learn to understand you much better if I can get familiar with the way you talk.
Oh, hey.
Who's that?
That was my computer, sorry.
Oh, that's funny.
Hang on, I'm
Thank
looking
you
for
so
it.
much. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you haven't downloaded it yet, we're gonna upload it right now, so you can stay on.
Be a great co-broke. Okay, here we go. Just posting it right now as a PDF.
Can you see it?
Mhm.
Got it? Oh, good.
Can you also post that form that you use, that Melissa, that you were talking about earlier, that you put on the MLS about, do you know the form I'm talking about?
I do, yeah, the additional and important information one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or, yep, happy to. I'm looking for one right now.
Steve, can you see it?
I can, thank you.
Okay, good. This is your opportunity.
So you can, search any of my listings.
Okay.
Mm.
You can use this. This is one I used recently for Summer Street in Weymouth, which closed last week. So it's okay if I post it. So let's see.
Margaret, Justin said that he has a step-by-step process on how to find the agent's transactional history. So
Oh.
if you
I
want,
have
just
from-
shoot him an email and he'll send it over to you.
Yeah.
Straight from Missy from the last time I took this class.
There you go.
It's in an email and I just copied it. So if anybody.
Here's
Yeah,
a
just
sample
reach
of
out
my
to them.
I'm
additional
not looking to spy. I didn't know you could do something like that.
You
So,
got to spy. What do you think we have? That's why we have our real estate licenses.
Spying's half the fun.
oh my God, love you.
So I just posted that additional and important info. If you guys want
Thank you.
to use it as a sample.
Yeah.
I just find it's good practice.
Yeah. I did experience just recently a agent who was sent a replied to all, we're talking attorneys, lenders, everything, and just completely was so inappropriate, directed towards me. And just to let you know, the way I responded, that I got a response back from lenders, from the attorney saying how professional, because I truly had to take a hit and swallow the pill.
Yep.
And I just let everybody know just what you started with, that at the beginning, it's about getting to the finish line and it's about your buyer or seller, you know,
Mhm.
so it was a huge hit.
Yeah, you have to be classy about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I had my nightmare Carver deal, the first offer that we had, the one that we were going to keep the deposit money because they defaulted on the, mortgage commitment. We were fighting over the deposit money. I mean, we had the cops here because the buyer threatened,
Oh.
Steve Zabosky and I, and big fun thing. She went on my Facebook and she posted a negative thing. I would never work with her, but she wasn't my client.
Oh.
And you should have seen what I wanted to write back. And I had Ariel Sakala look at it. She's like, you can't write that. I'm like, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I did write, she helped me with it a little bit because she's like, no, edit it more.
Yeah.
So I just said, hey, that I was representing the seller You know, I wanted people to know I wasn't representing you. You're not my client. And it was my fiduciary responsibility to do what they asked, you know? So it was nice and everything, but it's like with these days with people can write stuff wherever they want about you,
Yep.
you really have to be careful. And as much as I wanted to fight back about it, it's like, it would make me look worse. Right. And now, like, because you were so professional, now everyone else except for that agent who said something bad about you, they all think she's terrible and you're awesome. So,
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Just to be clear, it was a he. No.
okay, sorry, those guys.
The great thing
Which
was
is strange because usually it is the women, to be honest. It's usually not the guys, I will say. I usually
Oh,
tend to have better
Yeah.
working relationships with the
Yeah.
guys because they're just a little bit more like not crazy, you know? But
it's important to vent to a close companion before you think about ever hitting the send.
exactly. Yeah.
Definitely. Yep.
Yep.
And, you know,
Awesome.
to that note, Margaret, it's important to just, you know, seek the help of your peers.
Yeah.
Kristen and I have presented this class to you today as veterans. Previously, I've presented it with Rich Lannon, who has decades more of experience than I do. And as I mentioned at the outset of the class, we share this with you based on our own experience. It's collective experience and just good practices. As you're out there in the market, you're going to experience things from time to time you've never seen before. Kristen and I see things all the time that we've never experienced before, whether it's conditions of, you know, the property or how to price it or how the sale goes down or how things transpire. It's good to just talk it out with your colleagues and make sure that you're making that calm, rational response or just skilled professional counseling to anyone who needs it. So I said a few minutes ago, emulate the culture that we attempt to embody here at KW, be the best co-broke you can, be as professional as you can, give your clients great representation, and you'll be able to work by referral easily. So,
Yep. And ask questions too, you know, when they're going off, just be calm and ask questions. Last night they did a final walkthrough on my property and they were like, the agents texting me saying, the windows won't open and this is leaking and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, all right. Or we're missing the handles on the windows. I'm like, okay, were the handles there at the home inspection? Well, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, how are you asking me for something you don't even know what was there? I mean, it's not like my client would take the handles off and then just leave the house. You know, they must not have been there at the home inspection, you know, but you just have to be nice. I went to the house last night. I opened all the windows. I took all pictures and videos and sent them over to her. And she was great. I know it wasn't her. I know it was her client was being crazy. But, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, when buyer's agents can be a lot emotional, most of the time it's because their clients are freaking out on them. Like the client of the buyer's agent, the stuff she was telling me last night and this morning, I feel so bad for her. I mean, she is getting run through the ringer, you know, and it's like, so what am I going to do? Make it worse?
Right.
No, you know, so you have to keep that in mind. Sometimes it is their clients. And when you have those clients, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I once had a closing, and then I'll let you guys go. I mean, I once had a closing, it was about 3 years ago on a newer construction home. The home was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And the buyers, we had multiple bids. The buyers waived their home inspection. They were represented by a buyer agent. And when they came for the final walkthrough, they thought that was their opportunity to conduct their inspection. Not a formal one, but they were walking around the house, you know, testing some things and doing some damage to the point where they ran the shower in the basement bathroom, flooded the floor because there was no shower curtain, flooded the floor, and then refused to close because the hot water in the basement bathroom shower was not as hot as they wanted it to be. So, you know, the agent was blindsided. I was certainly blindsided. My seller wasn't happy. So, you know, what do? You remain calm. I was ready to jump on them and wring their necks, both of them right there, and just have it over and done with and move on to a new buyer. So what did I do? You have to think, okay, I know who services this heating system because the sticker was on it. It was a direct hot water, direct off the boiler hot water situation. My cousin happens to work for the HVAC company. I call him up. Listen, I'm having this problem at the property. We're supposed to close today. Can we find a solution? He actually called the seller to talk with her about it. And they came up with, listen, the company will be out tomorrow. to conduct an inspection for you and show you how to operate the system and how to adjust the hot water. We're not canceling the closing. We're keeping your deposits if you're not closing today. So my seller didn't have to agree to that service, but she did. And it was a solution to what otherwise could have, blown up the closing right there at the closing table at the 11th hour. So stay calm, think about what you're going to do, seek advice if you need to, be a great co-broker. All right, guys, well, we're 10 minutes over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Missy.
This is really
You're
great.
welcome.
A lot of
As you
information.
know, I'm always here. Kristen's always here. There are others you can look to. Be a great co-broker.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you.
week.
Great
Have a great
Bye.
weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.